Yeah, we back. Now today's gonna be a quick video, interesting topic. Actually been inspired by, the past few days of content. And I think I spoke on this before, but I think it's time to bring it back. Now, to me, I love this story because anything that has to do with brotherhood and camaraderie and fighting against the adversary, I just love those stories. So today we're going to be talking about the connection between Dessalines and General Louis Delgrès, the rebel leader from Guadeloupe, who was rebelling against the French government at the exact same time. Now, unfortunately, I believe he was killed in 1802, but a very little known fact is that in 1804, during one of Dessalines' government speeches or proclamations, he actually gave a shout out directly and a salute to the memory of General Louis Delgrès. Right now, to me, these two men never met. Dessalines never met Delgrès. He only heard about him. He never met him, never shook his hand, never seen him. But he heard about him, and he actually gave him a shout out during one of his speeches. And I want to talk about the connection between the two generals because I think the story is it's very interesting. Now, take a look up on the screen, right? Louis Delgrès was a leader of the movement in Guadeloupe resisting reoccupation and the reinstitution of slavery by Napoleonic France in 1802. So like I said before, when the French government sent that massive expedition to arrest Toussaint Louverture, they also sent military expeditions to the rest of their colonies as well to reinstitute slavery, one of them being Guadeloupe. And General Louis Delgrès, he declared rebellion against the French and he fought to the death. Now let's continue. During the last decade of the 18th century, Delgrès dedicated his life to the service of the French Republic. He fully supported the abolition of slavery by the French National Assembly in 1794 and supported the Republic twice, first by defending Guadeloupe against a British invasion in 1794, and second by participating in the Garifuna riots in St. Vincent in 1795, where the black population of the island rose up against British rule. Now, during the 1790s, the mid-1790s, Delgrès was an officer in the French military, just like Dessalines around the exact same time was an officer in the French military. The only difference was Delgrès was in Guadeloupe and Dessalines was in Saint-Domingue. Now, keep in mind, it mentioned the French in 1794, they abolished slavery in all their territories. Now, what was the spark for that? Back in 1793, the colonial government in Saint-Domingue abolished slavery on the colony. And when the news got back to France, the central government in Paris decided to abolish slavery in all their territories. So due to the rebellion that occurred in Saint-Domingue in Haiti at the time, all the blacks in all the colonies, all the territories were liberated and emancipated in 1794. That's why in the passage it says that in 1794, Delgrès supported the abolition of slavery and fought in multiple military campaigns in service of the French government, right? Because the regime at that time in the mid 1790s was, I guess you could say, more liberal. So they had a lot of, high-ranking black officers. They abolished slavery. So in the mid 1790s, it was a good time. It was a good time to be a black man on the French colonies. We emancipated from slavery. We in the military getting money, right? It was a good time in the mid 1790s for men like Dessalines and Delgrès. Now, let's continue. Delgrès' involvement in these conflicts led to his participation in major battles against England. He was captured and imprisoned twice in 3 years between 1794 and 1797. His reputation in the French army grew, and he was promoted to captain and became a major advisor to French Admiral Jean-Baptiste Raymond de la Crosse. Now, I believe that was the governor of St. Lucia. Now, during that exact same time, Toussaint Louverture, he's governing the colony of Saint-Domingue. Delgrès, he a political advisor to the governor of St. Lucia, high-ranking man in the French military. So it was a good time in the 1790s, in the mid-1790s for the brothers, man. But unfortunately, the French would turn around in 1802 and come back to put everybody back in chains. Yes, to reinstate slavery. Take a look up on the screen. December 1801, the Saint-Domingue expedition begins, right? So December 1801, the French government dispatches military warships to Haiti, to the colony of Saint-Domingue. May 20th, 1802, the law authorizing slavery where it is applied, right? So now slavery is now law on the colonies, right? We gave you a few years of freedom. Now we putting you back on the fields. Now, July 16th, the consular decree authorizes slavery also in Guadeloupe, right? December 7th, 1802, the consular decree reinstates slavery also in French Guiana. Now, like I mentioned in the video the other day, I know we focus on the Haitian Revolution in particular, but there was also open rebellions across all the French colonies, because when the French came, they were met with resistance, right? Just like when they went to Guadeloupe, Delgrès took up arms. He said, nah, we're not going back on the field, baby. Nah, we emancipated. We are free. We are liberated. That was the law that was authorized back in 1794. We're not going to go back from that. We're not going to renege on that. 1794, we are emancipated from slavery. That's that. End of discussion. So Delgrès took up arms, just like Dessalines and Christophe and Jacques Maurepas and Sanssouci and all those legendary guys and Clairvaux, right? They all took up arms in Saint-Domingue at the exact same time. The exact same time that Dessalines was fighting in Saint-Domingue, Delgrès was fighting in Guadeloupe. Now, I want to go into a proclamation that Dessalines put out in 1804, where Delgrès was actually mentioned, and he actually paid homage to Delgrès and the rebellion that occurred in Guadeloupe a couple years prior. And in fact, I believe this was the speech that Dessalines gave, I think, before the 1804, when he marched on the French population in 1804. I think this was like the speech, the rallying cry that he gave before that event took place, right? So I'm gonna get into that clip, right? And I'm gonna come in and out my commentary. Let's go. Accustomed to such crimes, Guadeloupe sacked and destroyed, its ruins still smoking with the blood of children, women, and old people put to the sword. All right, we back. Now, to listen to the entire proclamation, go to the video that I put out entitled Letters by Jean-Jacques Dessalines, 1799 to 1804. And I read a series of letters and documents that were written by Dessalines between those years in that time frame. And that was a proclamation that he put out in 1804, right? A government proclamation. And as you can see, he said, Guadeloupe sacked and destroyed, its ruins still smoking with the blood of children, women, and old people put to the sword. Now, keep in mind, Dessalines never set foot in Guadeloupe. He never been to that country. But Dessalines, being the legendary Pan-Africanist that he was, due to the fact that he loved his people, no matter where they was at, he gave them a shout out, even though he never met them. He never met a single person on the colony of Guadeloupe. He never been there. He never even met Delgrès, but just the love for his fellow people. He gave them a shout out in the government proclamation in 1804, right? Just for the fact that you also took up arms against the French. Maybe it might not have turned out the same way, but just the fact that you did it, we honor and we pay homage to that. Now, I'm going to get into the section where he actually directly gives a shout out to General Louis Delgrès. Let's get into it. The brave General Delgrès carried into the air with the debris of his fort rather than to accept the irons. Generous warrior, your noble death, far from astonishing our courage, only irritates in us the thirst to avenge you or follow you. Now, when Dessalines made a reference to General Delgrès, let's talk about General Delgrès for a second. Let's pay homage to the ancestor, right? Take a look up on the screen. The French army, led by General Richepince, drove Delgrès into Fort Saint-Charles, which was held by formerly enslaved Guadeloupeans. After realizing that he could not prevail and refusing to surrender, Delgrès was left with roughly 1,000 men and some women. At the Battle of Matuba on the 28th of May, 1802, Delgrès and some of his followers ignited their gunpowder stores, committing suicide in the process in an attempt to kill as many French troops as possible. One of his followers, the fearless pregnant warrior, Solitude, who was injured in the explosion and later captured and decapitated by the French on November 30th, the day after the birth of her child at the age of 30. Her last words were, "Live free or die," which became the mantra of the resistance. Now, as you can see, General Delgrès, that's who Dessalines was paying homage to, right? Because General Delgrès, when he was surrounded by the French during his rebellion, he decided to commit suicide by igniting his gunpowder instead of surrendering to the enemy. That's why Dessalines paid homage. And Dessalines was like, listen, we want to avenge the honor of Delgrès. Now let's continue. All right, we back. Now, like I said, Dessalines never met Delgrès a day in his life, right? But news would still travel even back then, even though there was no social media, no cell phones. It was just newspapers and letters and dispatches. But communication still traveled between the colonies. Black men still interacted, especially in the ports, right? Especially in the port of Cap Français in the north, right? The colony of Saint-Domingue had one of the busiest ports in all of the colonies. So during the late 1790s, early 1800s, the vast majority of all the ports in Saint-Domingue were under the control of black men. And a lot of the sailors during that time were also black men. So black men would interact with other black men from different colonies, especially in the ports. We'd exchange information, we'd interact. So there was communication between, black men from different locations. even back during that time. So don't let anybody tell you some fake propaganda that, oh, we didn't know what was happening on the other colonies. No, we knew. Our people knew what was happening on the other colonies. You don't think that word was going around? No, we knew. Everybody knew what was happening, right? If there was a rebellion, trust me, everybody knew, right? Now, as you can see, Delgrès, he died on his sword. When the French came to reinstate slavery, he took up arms and he died about it, right? He said, nah, I ain't going back. We ain't going back. 1794, we abolished slavery. We ain't going back. Now, it's ironic because if you listen to the description of how Delgrès died, it was actually a very similar situation that Dessalines found himself in around the exact same time. I believe Delgrès died around May 1802. And a couple months before that, in March 1802, Dessalines fought the famous Battle of Crête-à-Pierrot. And during that battle, Dessalines was defending a fort, and several French regiments were descending upon this fort from all directions. The French were besieging this fort, and Dessalines defended this fort for weeks. I believe from the beginning of March to the end of March 1802, the French had sent multiple attacks against this one fort. And each time they sent an attack, hundreds of French soldiers got killed, right? On March 12th, they attacked. Damn near 500 French got killed, right? March 22nd, they attacked. Damn near 300 French got killed, right? Each time they attacked, hundreds of French soldiers got dropped. Dessalines standing tall in the fort. Now, there's a famous story about that battle, the Battle of Crête-à-Pierrot. Dessalines had told the soldiers under his command, both men and women, that if the French penetrate the fort, I'm going to ignite the gunpowder stores and I'm going to kill us all inside this fort, right? So we're either going to defeat the French and defend the fort, or we're all going to die right here, right now. Right. So that's why they defended the fort with their lives. Each time the French came, they got dropped because Dessalines said, if you do not repel the invasion, then I'm going to kill us all in this fort right now. Now, Delgrès, a couple months later, in May 1802, he found himself in the exact same situation. As you already know, he was surrounded by the French. He was defending a fort. The French penetrated the fort. He ignited the gunpowder stores. Boom, committed suicide, killed himself, killed everybody, killed a whole bunch of French soldiers, right? That was the exact same thing Dessalines said he was going to do during the Battle of Crête-à-Pierrot a couple months earlier. And Delgrès actually went through with it and he killed himself, right? Instead of going back and surrendering to the French government. And as you can see, a couple years later, when Dessalines was head of state, even though he never met Delgrès, never shook his hand, he only heard about him, right? He only heard about the rebellion and the fact that he stood tall, and instead of surrendering to the enemy, he decided to ignite the gunpowder stores in the same way that he would have done back during the Battle of Crête-à-Pierrot. So he paid homage to Delgrès in one of his government proclamations, right? And to me, that's just a beautiful story. That's a beautiful story. Once again, Dessalines exemplifying, the true spirit of Pan-Africanism, as he always did, as he always done, So once again, much love to the ancestor, much love to General Delgress, much love to the forefathers, much love to the foremothers. Man, you already know. Now, like I said, 21 Cannons, the first song, the first single, the first video of the next project. Pin comment at the top. Check it out. Link in the description. Within the next couple days, it should be available on all platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, everything, right? So I'm gonna keep y'all posted with that. Sign up for the Patreon, NTD1814, and I'm gone. Peace.
King of the North, and I feel like Moise. Took a few losses, I'm back on my feet. Selling they soul for trinkets and cash. Right on the front like the leader from Chad. Feel like a see me, I feel like I'm Idris. Walking on gold, I handle my business. Honor, integrity, money, and power. Told me she love me, she want me in power. Told her I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Told her come over, come see me in person. Told her come over, I'm sick of the talking. Don't got no time cause that money be calling. Working all night and I'm up in the morning. Love when I call her, she love my attention. Body and soul, I'm truly protected. Back on that road and big body business. Told her I love her, I told her she mine. Get in that passenger seat, we gon' ride. Back on my mission, that money been stacking. Came from the bottom, I'm steady expanding. Run to the check and I pull up and vanish. Grabbing the neck from the back when I smash. Don't need no question, they know it's official. Come from the cloth and my life ain't no fiction. Ride for the scene like I'm army enlist. Gotta stay focused, I'm moving deliberate. Heart of a king and my heart full of pain. Look at my neck and it's flooded with chains. And I got Dessalines blood in my veins. Enemy watching, I stay with a flame. Keep it 100, they know how we move. Black on black beam, interior blue. How you gon' leave me? I told you I love you. Pain in my heart, you knew I was trouble. Enemy watching, they wanna invade it. Hoping my brothers don't never betray us. Been on my mind and I hope I can save us. Look at my flaws, I don't see perfection. But I'm authentic, I'm whipping the 7. Like it's a phantom, I'm still manifesting. Gotta get money, I gotta get paid. Stay on my toes when I'm ducking these snakes. Go to my wrist and the queen on my arm. Feeling my energy, loving my charm. Might go put Dessalines face on a piece. Ready for war, that's how you get peace. Know I'm protected, I'm ready for action. When I walk in, I need 21 cannons. Secret location, I'm up in the palace. One of a kind and she loving my manners. One of a kind and I'm telling the truth. His and her Bentleys, I gotta get two. Feeling like future, we never gon' lose. Feeling like Garvey, I'm running the block. Entering off firm and I'm letting off shots. King of the north and I'm up at the top.
How you gon' leave me? I told you I love you. Pain in my heart and you knew I was trouble. Enemy watching, they wanna invade it. Hoping my brothers don't never betray us. Been on my mind and I hope I can save us. Look at my flaws, I don't